What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today when I talk to you about Rezolve AI. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down what's moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Rezolve is down 10.64%, 595 the low, 663 the high, and 15.6 million shares being traded, 18.9 is the average. So as far as official news today, there has been absolutely nothing, but they did put out a SEC forum, and that was after hours yesterday at 9:41 p.m. AF3. So that's, in my opinion, what is causing Rezolve to go down, despite getting a new rating today. So you did get our Roth MKM, so Rohit, who has a 64% success rating, did give a $9 price target. And I kind of find it weird because generally nothing has changed from the price target because they gave that rating last week. I only can assume that they're reiterating it because technically, I guess, Rezolve participated at the Roth MKM fireside chat, so they kind of feel compelled to kind of double down on their rating, but market is digesting everything that has come out recently. So there hasn't been all that much in news. Rather, last couple PRs have been dilution. And so this is where I kind of brought up in my last video that them doing PR blitzes is very questionable. And normally, in my personal experience, whenever stocks do this type of thing, it's to get algos to really pump up your stock artificially in the anticipation for dilution. Of course, they kind of took a little bit of a break. So September the 18th, no PRs, and then they put out this on the 23rd. So this news right here does show that they are doing 200 million in kind of financing, and this is going to be with institutional investors, returning fundamental institutional investors. So it is fair to assume that it is previous kind of convertible note investors, the ones that they kind of quashed because the SBAs were absolutely horrible for the stock price. Management realized that and cut that off right quick. But it looks like they are going back to these same investors. So very questionable. I think the only positive thing about this is it does allude to expansion. So I feel like the market said, okay, 200 million, that's kind of like a lot, should in theory go down 5%, but I'm only going to take you down 1% because you're talking about expansion. That's how the market interpreted this. And then you had news that came out yesterday that just said that it was closed. So nothing really crazy. You didn't really have to put out that news, in my opinion, because we generally knew it was going to be closed because you're not going to the open market. You're just going to a select few investors. So it was nothing crazy. So they didn't really have to put out that news. So in my opinion, that was more of them just putting out fluff. But surprisingly, you did have this right here. So no news today, but you did have this F3. So a shelf offering that was put out at 9:41 p.m. This does show that they are registering 7.4 million, that's for issuance, and then 187 million for resale, and that's for selling holders and selling stockholders, and those individuals are listed right here. Being listed here does not mean that they have to sell or are going to sell, is giving them the opportunity. But the market, what they generally do is anytime this is announced, like in F3, they price that in. So I think this was kind of out of the blue, in my opinion. So it's kind of interesting how everything is really playing out. Again, for them to do this right before their actual earnings is a massive bold move, and in my opinion, it is just to rip off the band-aid. They know that this is going to cause the stock price to go down, so they want to rip off the band-aid, cause the damage, and then going into the upcoming earnings, that's where they should hopefully be confident and things will move higher. That's how I see things playing out. But anything is possible, right? Things could go south easily. So let me know your general thoughts on that in the comments below. When it comes down to shorts, at the time of doing this video, they are returning 1.09 million shares. By interpreting that and analyzing it, it goes to show that shorts feel like today's push lower is not justified. 8.87% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 10.5 million shares overall being shorted. Looking at the options, 2.49 million in calls, 140 in puts, 52% of all the options being done are bearish in nature. This is the current estimates for their upcoming earnings. So there is a anticipated 22.99% move in either direction. So almost like $1.50 in either direction. So it's going to be a very volatile earnings. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 750 for at least the next little bit. Bears, there's not really much puts going on right here. More so sub $6 is anticipated. But even looking on the secondary market, you're not really seeing that much in transactions to justify the overall volume. So again, as I always like to analyze where the volume comes from, this is the flow. So algos are in full force and more oriented towards the outflow. So again, going over everything, it goes to show that that's where the volume's coming from. This is the latest rating that did come out. So Roth MKM, not really changing the price target, but just kind of doubling down on that. And again, they did that fireside chat with MKM recently. So that's probably why MKM feels compelled to do this. Aside from that, though, there hasn't really been that much in articles or news really talking about Rezolve. Hopefully with their upcoming earnings, it is kick ass, and then that'll get like its name on like people's radar and really start to kind of push higher. But I think the market is very questioning the recent dilution. So let me know your general thoughts on that. But aside from that, because of the recent price action, it did break below that 10-day moving average. So kind of losing momentum. And one thing as well that you could see a very aggressive push lower is that look at the willing buyers. There is none. So again, you could see a very substantial push lower if their earnings is not on point. If there's any hint at kind of anything or even future dilution, the market's going to absolutely knock this down quite significantly. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Once again, even looking back over here as it did go up, there was a couple of gaps that needed to be filled. So I think this one was filled. In theory, this one might as well. There's no rule of thumb saying that, hey, this gap needs to be filled by X date. It might never happen. Sometimes it does. Like that's just generally a rule of thumb that people like to look at. So potentially you could see a little bit of a pullback associated to that. These are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool above $100,000. So very quiet stuff. So again, reconfirming that algos are kind of the main reason why this stock is moving today. But still, like I said, I think a lot of that is just feeding off of the recent documents that did come out associated to dilution and everything else. So if you do believe, for instance, what shorts are doing, that shorts are returning because they feel like today is not justified, buy, average down, do what you need to do. So I've had some people as well ask me when I am buying Rezolve next, and given the circumstances of what came out and even based on my last video, I don't like companies when they do PR blitzes. It shows just them trying to manipulate the system. And so I think generally I will be waiting for their upcoming earnings just to hear what they have to say. And then depending on that, then that's where I'll buy. But right now with that 595, it is trading between this S2 and this S3. So 533 is going to be that strong support, 605 and then 650 going to be the next strong target / resistance points. Let me know your thoughts on Rezolve. What's your viewpoint on everything that has recently come out? Are you optimistic about it? What's your kind of 2 cents on everything? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.